Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on the Export Control Amendment ending live sheep exports by Sea Bill 2024. Deputy Speaker, why is it that the Labor government continues to bite the hand that feeds it? This legislation is part of the government's promise to shut down the live sheep export industry in Australia. And why do you think the Labor government are wanting to shut down the live export sheep industry? For green, left-wing, city-centric preferences. That is why. This Labor government sold the sheep industry for a dirty preference deal with the Animal Justice Party in the lead-up to the Dunkley by-election in March 2024. When Minister Watt made his announcement on the shutdown deadline, 11 May 2024, the Animal Justice Party said the following: "We are proud that the ALP could deliver a knockout blow by demanding the end of live sheep export as a requirement for our preferences at the Dunkley by-election in March. Ongoing conversations behind the scenes between the AJP and Labor leadership has helped fine-tune government policy." And what did the Animal Justice Party say in their next target? All live animal export industries. I completely back the former Prime Minister John Howard's call for the Labor Party to put the extreme Greens last at the next election. There is no place in Australian politics for extreme Greens in the continual attacks on the hard-working men and women in the mining and agricultural industries. Mr Albanese has been silent on preference deals with the Greens, and it's time for the Labor to show some leadership and commit to putting the extreme Greens last. If not, it will show their contempt for our agricultural industry. Deputy Speaker, while the sheep and wool industries in my electorate of Flynn is quite small compared to the likes of Western Australia, I speak against this legislation as I have grave fears for what industry will be next. I'm of the firm belief that we should keep the sheep and ditch this terrible legislation. Labor cannot be trusted to look after the agricultural sector, with their history of attacking the beef industry. According to the Meat and Livestock Australia 2021-22, Australia's red meat and livestock industry turnover was $75.4 billion. This is 7.7% higher than the revised 2020-21 figures and an increase of 10.7% over the 17-18 figures. In 2021-22, the Australian red meat and livestock industry employed approximately 433,389 people. In 2022, Australia produced approximately 1.9 million tonnes of carcass weight beef and veal. In 2022, 2.7 million grain-fed cattle were marketed, equal to 47% of all adult cattle slaughtered. In 2022, Australia exported 67% of its total beef and veal production. The value of total beef and veal exports in 2022 was $10.4 billion Australian, with almost 11 million head of cattle being in my home state of Queensland. Deputy Speaker, Central Queensland is the centre of Australia's beef operations, and Labor's move to cuddle up to their Greens mates while making a commitment to ban live sheep exports could be a clear call to all our beef producers. Don't judge Labor by their words, judge them by their actions, and their intended actions are now loud and clear. Labor shut down the live trade before, and now they want to do it again. They've started with sheep, and then they'll move on to beef, just like they did in 2011, when at a moment's notice shut down the live beef trade, costing Australian graziers many millions of dollars and harming our international relations. This knee-jerk reaction from the Labor government back in 2011 meant some graziers went bankrupt and had to sell up. Some tragically took their own lives. In 2020, a group of cattle producers, exporters and service providers won a class action in the federal court which found the former Labor government's 2011 decision to ban the live exports to Indonesia was unlawful. The beef industry won that battle all the way to the High Court, and Labor have now indicated that they just want to kick the industry in the teeth rather than stand up and protect those who create wealth for our nation. According to the ABC, in the years since, only the lead claimant, the Brett Cattle Company, have received compensation. In January, the Labor government rejected the 215 remaining claimants, offered to settle the case for $510 million plus costs and interest, which could have resulted in the total figure of more than $800 million. So why does this Labor government hate our agricultural industries so much? While the previous coalition government invested billions in upgrading core infrastructure for the beef industry, including roads, rail and sale complex, Labor is now plotting how they can sacrifice the sector in return for the support of inner-city ultra-greens. They are not on our side and they need to be held to account for their betrayal of the livestock sector. The biggest concern from producers in the electorate of Flynn is, will the beef industry be next? Deputy Speaker, the Labor government's policy to end live sheep exports is shameful, blatantly ideological and reckless. Labor's policy to shut down the live sheep export industry fails to acknowledge the importance of this sector to supply a chain of people, our trading partners, their food security and the Australian economy. Live sheep employs thousands of Western Australians, more than 3,000 people, and has delivered important and comprehensive animal welfare reforms in recent years. It is crucial to recognise that the live sheep export industry employs shearers, truck drivers, fodder suppliers, livestock agents, farmers, producers and their families. Australia has the highest animal welfare standards in the world, and this should be a source of national pride. Labor should be backing and supporting our farmers instead of attacking and destroying these live export industries. Since Labor embarked on shutting down the live sheep trade, confidence in the market has fallen. Prices for sheep have plummeted in 23 and thousands of Western Australians who rely on this industry are desperately worried about their future. The timing of Labor's legislation to ban the industry is appalling, when Western Australian farmers are currently battling the effects of a very, very dry autumn. Labor's decision carries enormous consequences for the Australian agricultural sector, and if we allow this policy to be implemented, it will set a precedence for any lawful agricultural industry. If this decision proceeds, our farmers will ask, what industry will be next? This policy sends a frightening and alarming message to all animal production industries. The Labor government's policy to end live sheep exports is not based on any science, evidence or data. Good agricultural policy must be driven by science, facts and solid evidence, not extreme activist agendas which hurt innocent people. Ending this industry will damage Australia's trading relationships in the Middle East, where our sheep exports are currently exported to, as this product is very important for their food security. Shutting down live sheep exports will damage our trading relationships, hurt food security in the Middle East. Our trading partners do not want chilled or boxed meat. They will secure their sheep from elsewhere and potentially from nations with poorer animal welfare standards than Australia. If Australia doesn't export live sheep, our existing trading partners will source alternatives from countries that do not have Australia's exceptionally high animal welfare standards, resulting in perverse international animal welfare outcomes. This was tragically highlighted in June 2022, when 15,000 sheep drowned due to a foreign boat having over 6,000 sheep beyond its limit. These are the animal welfare standards that will fill the void if Australia exits this industry field. The government's so-called $107 million transition package for live sheep export industry is an insult and a disgrace. The package will do very little to assist the whole supply chain to plan and implement transition actions and expand domestic sheep processing capacity. Deputy Speaker, this legislation to end live sheep exports is another horrific blow to the agricultural sector and regional Australia. In just 2 years under this Labor government, the people, families, communities, industries in regional Australia are doing it tough, and it's a direct consequence of policy decisions that this government is making. What we have seen in the 24 months since the Albanese government was elected is an unprecedented target assault on regions, and this includes billions in cuts to infrastructure and road, rail and water projects. More than $7 billion was taken out of water infrastructure in Labor's first budget in 2022. And to make matters worse, the Labor government has betrayed Bundaberg and North Burnett regions in their most recent budget by slashing funding to restore Paradise Dam. Prime Minister Albanese sat in ABC wide-based studios and promised Labor would repair the dam, and now they have cut the funding that the previous coalition government secured. They've torn up dedicated agricultural visas despite crippling and widespread workforce shortages, attempted to impose shambolic $150 million biosecurity protection levy, a new tax which will force Australian farmers to pay for biosecurity risks on their international competitors to bring their products into this country. They've committed to reckless rollout of wind and solar factories and 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines across agricultural land in the pursuit of a disastrous all-renewables approach to our energy grid, with around 60 projects proposed in the electorate of Flynn alone, forcing havoc in local communities and the environment. A tax on new vehicles, where Australian families, farmers and tradies will pay more for SUVs, four-wheel drives and utes. Cost of living crisis, which continues to worsen, where Labor's homegrown inflation remains high, and where, under their watch, Australians are paying 11% more for food, 14% more for housing, 13% more for rent, 20% more for electricity, 25% more for gas, 11% more for health, 11% more for education and 15% more for insurance. Deputy Speaker, the Labor government has also turned their back on regional communications and have caught out falsely claiming that the mobile black spot program has been cut to zero. Communications Minister has been attempting to argue the program has not been defunded, but the facts are that the budget papers show that zero funding has been allocated to mobile black spot programs in 27-28, and they specifically refer to the conclusion of the program. Asked about these issues recently, Minister Rowland told a host of the Sounds of the Mountains program that the budget papers need to be read as a whole, not in isolation, and the budget papers clearly show that the program has been funded through the Better Connectivity Plan, so the assertion that is being made is absolutely wrong. Unfortunately, Minister Rowland, the budget papers reveal that this is not the case. In 27-28, funding is cut to zero for not only the mobile black spot program but also for Better Connectivity Plan for regional and rural Australia. The Minister has said the mobile black spot program will be funded by the Better Connectivity program, but that is not the case because there is no money at all in the budget for the Better Connectivity program in 27-28. It is not possible to fund a program with $0, Madam Speaker. It is time the government was honest about the axing of the funding of the mobile black spot program. The Albanese government is not being upfront with the people, especially in rural and regional Australia, who rely on this program. We can see again that the Labor government is not serious about improving connectivity in rural Australia. It was the coalition government which set up the mobile black spot program, and once again we see Labor crab-walking away from supporting it. Minister Rowland must reverse her decision to defund the mobile black spot program and ensure that the people of the Flynn electorate and other regional communities have the same connectivity rights as the rest of Australia. Deputy Speaker, I will be opposing this legislation as it is another example of the government once again biting the hand that feeds it. Today I call on the Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, the Minister for Agriculture, Murray Watt, to come to Central Queensland, look our graziers in the eye and make the commitment that they will not ban live cattle exports. Keep the sheep, protect our critical agricultural industries.